The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
So I want to share with you an unbelievable story of Emunah and Bitocho, just incredible. The story is found in one of Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein's Svarim, Piryo Masuk, in Parshas Shmini. It's said over in the name of Rav Shalom Shadron Zatzal. It's just awe-inspiring. In the late 1920s, the monetary situation in Eretz Yisrael, in Yerushalayim, was terrible. The hunger, the lack of food, the lack of money. So they would send a distinguished Talmud Chacham, who also happened to be a great and inspiring speaker, to come to America to raise funds for the Aniyei Yerushalayim. His name was Rav Volk. And among his stops was Chicago, and there was a wealthy shul in Chicago, which he came to, and he spoke magnificently. He touched their hearts, and after Shabbos, everybody was just lining up to give checks for the Aniyei Yerushalayim. Amongst those people was a very distinguished, wealthy individual by the name of Yerachmiel Wexler. And besides giving a big check, he said to Rav Volk, he says, it was so inspiring the way you spoke. It wasn't just about Aniyei Yerushalayim. You spoke about the Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, about its special places, the Chevron Yeshiva. He says, I would like to visit. Who knows, maybe I could somehow have a branch of my business there. And he was a man of action, and he booked a ticket right away, and he took his son with him, his 16-year-old Yecheskel with him. He visited Yeshiva's Chevron. Chevron had a lot of Americans in there. And he spoke to them, and he asked them, do you think it's a good idea to leave my son here to learn? He says, well, there's no better place than to be in Yeshiva's Chevron, to learn Torah. And he left him there, and he went back to America. This was in the winter of 1929. In the summer of 1929, Chodesh Av, was the infamous Chevron massacre. The Arabs, Yamach Shemam, these barbarians, these animals, butchered so many B'nai Torah. And amongst the dead was none other than 16-year-old Yecheskel Wexler. Next year, when Rav Volk took his annual trip to collect money for Aniyei Yerushalayim, there was no way, he said, I can go to Chicago. I can't meet Yerachmiel Wexler. I can't look him in the face. It's because of me that he sent his son there. And he skipped Chicago for a couple of years. One year, on his annual trip, Rav Volk was walking on the streets of New York, and who does he meet? None other than Yerachmiel Wexler. And Yerachmiel sees him and says, Rav Volk, we missed you. I haven't seen you in a few years in Chicago. What? How come you don't come anymore? I still remember your fantastic, great Russia. And Rav Volk looks at him and he says, I tell you the truth, I couldn't come to Chicago because I couldn't face you. It's because of me that you wound up sending your son to Eretz Yisrael, to Yeshiva's Chevron, when he was tragically killed. I just didn't know how I could face you. And Yerachmiel Wexler says to him, what? Do you have any idea of the Hakaras HaTov my family and I have for you, the gratitude that we have? And now Rav Volk is looking at him and says, doesn't understand. He says, you don't understand? Listen to me. 40 days before the conception of my dear son Yecheskel, there was already a gzeira that he's only going to live for 16 years in this world. And there was nothing that was going to change that gzeira. Had I not sent him to Eretz Yisrael to learn in Yeshiva's Chevron, he would have stayed in America. He wouldn't have been around any B'nai Torah. He would have died either in a car accident or of an illness, and that would have been it. But because of your drasha, I sent him to Eretz Yisrael to learn in Yeshiva's Chevron, where he was Omal v'Yoga. He learned. He died a real Ben Torah. Not only that, he died a Kiddush Hashem, Gadol v'Noira. And for that, I can't thank you enough, what I owe you. And Rav Volk is just standing there, open-mouthed. He just speechless. What an incredible Emunah, what incredible bitachon. This is not some story about Rabbi Akiva. This is not a story about the Chavetz Chaim. It's a story about a regular Jew, not so regular, obviously. Not so simple. A Jew in the 20th century. That Emunah, that bitachon, that implicit faith, kol man da'ovid rachmana letav ovid. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what He's doing. He knew what He was doing when He took Nadav and Avihu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what He's doing when He took the great Rav Chaim Kanievsky from us. And the schus of that Emunah and bitachon, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He knows what's best for us. He orchestrates everything. There should be a tremendous schus for Klal Yisrael. You should see Yeshua's v'nachamas and an end to this galus. And we should greet Mashiach very, very soon. B'mheira v'yameinu. Amen.
You've just experienced
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org